So were you told to go to college only to give up 4 years of your life? Okay, your younger years, only to come out of college and have nothing but debt. Okay. Well, I'm here to tell y'all it's not too late to change careers. All right. I want to share with you guys, I want to plug you in on how I went from being a unit secretary in a hospital to making over 6 figures as a radiology technologist. So if you're interested on how I did that, keep on watching.
Babs, you just got the green light.
So welcome back to the plug. I wanted to come on and share with you guys how I went from being just a unit secretary and a monitor technician to being a 6 figure earning radiology technologist. I think a lot of times people tell you to go to college, but they don't give you the necessary steps needed in order to be successful and make that money, money, so you could travel the world and do all the things you want to do in life. So I want to come and plug you guys into this little life hack that I've achieved so much wealth and so much success in my life and in my career. So I just want to share with you, how did I get here? So when I was younger, there was this lady that actually worked in the hospital. She was a church member of mine, Sister Alberta, and she's the one that put the possibility of being a radiology technologist in my head. I knew from very young that I wanted to be a radiology technologist, or not necessarily a radiology technologist, but I knew I wanted to work in the cath lab. My grandmother had had stents and balloons placed in her heart, and I knew from that point on, I wanted to do that. I was very interested in it just from reading the booklets on it. So when Sister Alberta came into my life when I was like 16, she had told me about radiology technology and that would be the path to get into that career. But at the time, y'all know how it be. We be young and dumb. We want to do things. We want to follow our heart. And I decided I wanted to go to school, to college, to be a prima ballerina. So I was actually going to school at the University of Louisiana, Raging Cajuns, okay? And I was going to school there for like 2 years studying dance. So I would study like ballet and performing arts. And my mom was like, that's not going to pay the bills. You need to go back to school and do something else, because all you doing, and it would irritate me because like she would never be supportive in what I was doing. So it would irritate me so bad because I would hear her like in her beauty shop, because she had her own beauty shop. She would tell people, yeah, she just going to school over there at UL, kicking up her legs. And that just used to irritate me, like when you don't have somebody supportive in your corner that's supposed to be supportive, right? So I was like, you know what? The only way I'm going to get out from underneath needing help from my parents or the judgment from my parents is to go and get a career where I could be done really quick and I could make a bunch of money. So I circled back to radiology technology. The first couple schools that I tried to get into, it was difficult getting into because everybody was trying to get into these schools. But I eventually found a school by the name of May Advanced for me to enter in and be able to go to school. So before X-ray school, I'm going to back it up a little bit. I knew I wanted to work in the hospital. I just didn't know exactly what path I wanted to go into. And back then it was difficult to get in the hospital. Without experience, it was extremely difficult to get a job. So I started out as a unit secretary, and I worked as a unit secretary, I want to say all of maybe 3 months. I heard from somebody else in the hospital that said, you should be a monitor technician. And I was like, oh, okay. So basically what a monitor technician is, you go and you monitor people's heart rhythms. Okay. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I went to my boss and told him I was going to take the course on becoming a monitor tech. It's just like a 1-day course or something like that. And he told me, you'll never be able to graduate from the little class, from the little course. Baby, I showed him. I passed that course and moved up to the 3rd floor and did monitor technician work. And I want you guys to remember that, because at the end, I'm going to give you guys some exclusive tips on how I got into my six-figure career, and not just how I got into it, but how I got to the six figures. Okay. And that's a key point right there that I'm telling you right now about being a monitor tech. So by being a monitor tech in the hospital, because of the crazy hours that they had, it kind of helped with me going to radiology technology school. Because when you're going to x-ray school, you have to dedicate your life, like from 8 in the morning till 4 in the evening, you're in school. And this is like actual hours you're going to be working in clinicals and stuff. So you cannot, like, let's say, come in and say, well, I'm going to take night classes. There's no such thing as night classes, because you're going to need to do your clinicals. So you have to be ready and committed to give up 2 years of your life, like literally 2 years of your life. It's not going to be no hanging out, no going on trips, no, going to family events. You're going to be locked in for 2 years. But that 2 years is going to unlock so many more doors for you. So, like I stated, I wanted to level up my life, right? And I knew that dedicating 2 years of my life was better than what I was currently doing. When I was working as a monitor tech and a unit secretary, there have been times where I had to take bodies down to the morgue. There have been times where nurses had me go in rooms to help them clean patients, and turn out the patient had some kind of like C. diff or something like that, and they never told me. So I was tired of being used. I was tired of being abused. And I was tired of not making any money. As a unit secretary and as a monitor tech back then, I was only making like $10, $12 an hour. And that was nothing to live on. At that time, I lived in a garage apartment. And so my garage apartment rent every month was like $300, and it included utilities. It was a studio apartment. It had furniture in it. And so I just sacrificed for 2 years just trying to get to the next level in my life, because in order to do all the things that I wanted to do, which at that time, it wasn't about travel. It wasn't about buying a house. It wasn't about all the things that Gen, Z and Gen Y worry about nowadays. It was more so of having independence. That's why I went to school. I didn't go to school just because somebody told me to go. I went to school because I wanted independence from my family. I wanted independence from my parents. And I feel like a lot of times when you are in that space, a place of always needing somebody, they will do you any kind of way. So that was my way out of getting underneath their thumb, right? And so I sacrificed those 2 years. I put in the work those 2 years of basically working a full-time job but not being paid for it. One thing about radiology technology, for 2 years, you're going to be on the job. You're going to be learning on the job. You're going to be working and not getting a check. Okay. That's the breaks of it. And trust me, at the end, it's totally worth it. So going to x-ray school is 2 years. And after I was done with my 2 years and I graduated from school, I worked 5 years in the field of radiology technology. Okay. So that means I was just an x-ray tech. The people you see come in with the machines and putting the plates behind people's backs and snapping the machine and taking pictures. We took pictures of skulls, spines, anything on a patient's body we take pictures of. Now, the difference between a radiology technologist, and sometimes you'll see them get a CAT scan, you'll see CAT scan technologists, MRI technologists, it's a different level and a different aspect of the job. You're still a radiology technologist. It's just you're specializing in a specific field, a specific modality is what we call it. So if I wanted to go back to school and do CAT scan, I could go back to school for like 6 months, get a certification in CAT scan, sit for the boards, and then go on and become a CAT scan technologist. But I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be, and I knew it wasn't the place that was going to make me the most money. So after 5 years of working in regular radiology, I knew it was time to cross over. I knew I had the experience of patient care, the experience of doing my evaluations, the experience of just knowing how to work on a job and gain that experience. At the current employer that I was at, which was MD Anderson Cancer Center, they had a cath lab. But I didn't find out about the cath lab until 6 months before I left. So This whole time I was working, I was applying to jobs in cath lab. They would never hire me, right? And when I found out they had a cath lab there at MD Anderson, I was like, oh, because over in interventional radiology, it was like a guy's playland. Like they only would like to hire the guys. They never really would like to hire women. They felt that women were drama, right? And so they never really wanted to hire women. It was more of like a guy's guide type of job. So interventional radiology, I wasn't that much curious in, but cath lab, I did enough research to know that's where I wanted to be. So in the cath lab is where we do cardiac catheterization. So basically, we get access through the groin. We send a catheter all the way up to your heart, and we take images and pictures. If you're having a heart attack, you're going to see me first, okay? You're going to see the nurse, but in the actual room, you're going to see me first, okay? So I knew this was something I wanted to do. So I went over to the cath lab, which was actually right next door to the department I have been working in for like 5 years, right? And I went in, I spoke to the cath lab tech, and she was so nice. And this is the point of being nice and going out there and getting what you want. If you're an introverted person and you're not interested in getting to know new people, or you feel some type of way about certain people, then you probably never going to get to the next level where you need to be, because of the simple fact, sometimes it takes a little bit of you going out and digging for what you want, right? Asking for what you want. So I went and I spoke to the young lady, and she was like, oh, I've been a cath lab tech for like 15 years. I know people in the industry. I was like, so can you give me in a job? And it just so happens I lived in Spring, Texas. So, from Spring, Texas to the medical center, that is a drive. And I was doing that drive every day for 5 years. And there was a job that opened up in Conroe. So I applied to the job, and eventually I got the job. They took a chance on me not knowing anything about cath lab, and they did what we call on the job training. And that's how I ended up getting my foot in the door. I did 2 years at the Conroe Hospital. And while there, I cross-trained into interventional radiology, which I knew was going to make me more marketable. So I'm going to say this. It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of work ethic to get out there and get what you want to get to those 6 figures. It's not just going to fall in your lap. Being a regular x-ray tech, it's not going to just fall in your lap, hun. You have to work for it. You have to hustle for it. And I worked and hustle to move up in my career. Once my 2 years was like completed there, I actually ended up getting pregnant with Madison. And I thought I would just come back to work after I was done having my baby. But God had other plans. And I ended up getting into travel, cath lab tech, and interventional radiology tech. So basically, those 2 careers required no extra certifications. It's strictly on the job training. You keep your same certification that you have, your registry, your ART, which is the registry you sit for when you graduate from x-ray school. And I didn't have to do anything extra but just learn the job. And from that point on, I made it a must for me as a Black woman to be the best at what I did. I prided myself on being the best, because majority of the places I traveled to, there was barely any people of color, but majority of the time, no Black women. And I was usually the only Black woman in the room. So I made it a must for me to be the best. And by being the best, I started getting more and more jobs, more and more requests to come and work here, come and work there. Sometimes I would work at a facility for like 3 months on my travel assignment. And when working travel assignments, I used to make roughly about $3,500 a week. Y'all heard me right. $3,500 a week. I have companies right now hitting me up to work $4,500 a week right now. And I used to love working these jobs because I would show up and show out. And then when my 3-month contract was up, I would go back to another hospital probably I worked at before. And then that previous hospital I worked at would be begging for me to come back again. So I always made sure that my reputation was immaculate to the point that I would be requested to come back again and again. So now it's your turn because you guys been asking for this. You're interested in this career. I want to give you guys some exclusive tips on how to maneuver in this career because there are some pitfalls that you could fall into. And one of those being is LMRT versus ARRT. Okay. LMRT means you're a limited radiology technologist. ARRT means you are a registered radiology technologist. So basically, what this means is limited, and you have to be careful with these schools that's out there. If the school tell you you're gonna be done being and you'll be an X-ray tech within 6 months, that's a limited radiology technologist. That is not a registered radiology technologist. Any registered radiology technologist courses will be either 2 years or 4 years. It depends on you on which route you want to go. But you have to be careful when they're telling you, oh, you'll be done in 6 months. You'll be done in 8 months. You'll be done in 10 months. That is called a limited radiology technologist. And with the limited radiology technologist, you ain't going to find no job. You ain't gonna find no job making this kind of money. They might hire you to do some little x-rays in the doctor's office, probably making $15 to $18 an hour. But to make what I was making, like $50, $60 an hour, even $70 an hour, no, boo-boo, they're not finna pay you that. So be careful when selecting a school that you know if it's a limited, ask them that when you're applying. Is it a limited radiology technologist certification or is it a registered radiology technologist certification? The second thing is knowing if you want to go through a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. With a 2-year degree, you'll just come out as a radiology technologist, okay? Just a registered radiology technologist with an associate's degree, okay? We'll get to that in a second. Or you could go the 4-year route and you'll come out as a radiology technologist with a 4-year bachelor's degree. And you'll be able to decide in that program if you want to go with MRI, CT, or even work in administration. So like being a supervisor over a department or things of that nature. It's up to you. It's your choice. Okay. So for me, when I was going to school, there was only a 2-year degree. They didn't start having 4-year degrees until roughly around 2008. They started to roll out these 4-year degree programs. If you have a 2-year degree, then you could go on and finish up with your 4-year and get your bachelor's. Just do 2 more years and get your bachelor's. But you have to have an associate's degree. Okay. Now, when you're in the 4-year program, when you finish your first 2 years of radiology technology, you can then go and sit for the boards. And once you sit for the boards, you can then continue to work while you're in school for the last 2 years. So that's a plus. But what I will tell you is you need to know if it's a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. The third thing is tying into the degrees is you need to find out if it's an associate's degree program or a certificate program. 2 totally different things, okay? Associate's degree, if you get an associate's degree, you can finish up 2 more years of school and get your bachelor's. If you're in a certificate program, that means you went to school for 2 years, you got to sit for the boards, you pass your boards, but you can't do nothing with that. It's a certificate. And a lot of these colleges like Fortis and places like that are not like community colleges. Majority of the community colleges offer a 2-year degree. Fortis, on the other hand, which is like the college I went through, my college was called Medvance, and then they switched to Fortis. When I first initially started my 2 years of school, I started in Houston, Texas, and they only offered a certificate program. By the time I got done with this, got to the middle, not done, but got to the middle of the program, they still were not offering an associate's degree. So I transferred all my credits to their Baton Rouge, Louisiana location. And I finished up my last 2 years of school there, or my last year of school there. And I was able to graduate with an associate's degree because I knew I wanted an associate's degree. So be careful when you're selecting schools. Know what they offer so that way you're not caught up in the mess. The fourth thing, which is an important thing, is if you can work in a hospital, get a job in a hospital. And let me tell you why. This is the biggest hack. Even if you're a nurse, if you're going to nursing school, this is the biggest hack. The reason why I say it's the biggest hack is because while you're in school, you're going to be building up your job experience in healthcare. So when you go to apply for a job, it's going to be like a transition. You're going to be transitioning into a new position. So it won't be all that red tape of like applying for the job and then getting offered a low ball amount. They're going to take your years of service in healthcare and they're going to bump you up a little bit further than everybody else. If they're not doing that for you, then child, you need to be asking to be paid for your time and experience as a healthcare professional. But that's my biggest hack. Because I was working as a unit secretary and working as a monitor tech before x-ray school, it was very easy, extremely easy for me to get a job in healthcare. So I would tell you, utilize that hack, utilize that time, and that way you're able to still work. You could work opposite hours or just weekends at the hospital as opposed to not working at all during that time. And that way you have some form of income coming in. Trust me, this is the biggest hack you will have. So the fifth and final tip is utilize your brand. While you're in school, utilize your brand. Utilize that time to build you an online presence and brand. Talk about how you're going to school, where you're getting your scrubs, how you pack your lunches and meal prep, how you're working outside of the school hours in order to make ends meet, and just giving people tips along the way. Trust and believe it'll be another source of income for you to make money while you're in school. And that way you could just focus on your schoolwork, because trust me, school is hard, especially when it comes to taking that registry. To me, it's a way for you to build a brand outside of that. Overall, for me, doing radiology technology compared to doing nursing, in my opinion, 10 times better. Less headache, less responsibility, less schoolwork, just overall an amazing career. If you guys enjoyed this video, this plug video, and I plugged y'all into life, definitely hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment, and share it out with your friends and followers. We have a giveaway coming soon, so stay tuned for that, but you got to be subscribed to this channel to hear more on that. With that being said, if you have any other questions or comments about this career, or you want me to do more videos on this career, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time to get plugged in to life with April Butcher. See y'all next time. Love y'all. Bye. Hey.
Let's just kiss and say bye.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.